I am your host, Jeremy Caverley. This is going to be Mission Resistance. We're going to cover a lot of stuff tonight. As soon as I get this music off, here we go. I wanted to briefly recap what we've been talking about to this point. And I'm going to need something here for a second. But the mission series came about out of what people were going through, that either through prayer requests we received, people that we've met, and just a lot of different things that happened. And I look at Jeremiah 29:13 and 14. You shall seek me and find me, and you shall search for me with all your heart. I will be found by you, says Yahweh, and I will turn again your captivity, and I will gather you from all the nations, and from all the places where I have driven you, says Yahweh, and I will bring you again to the place from where I caused you to be carried away captive. I look at this verse, and I sit here and I think about what God really wants to do in our life, and in the plans and promises that He has for us. So look at, the rest of Jeremiah 29:11. It talks about plans for promise, for hope in the future. And there's a lot of Christians right now that have been hurt by the church. A lot of people think the church is, a building or a group of people, when it's really, we're all at fault when it comes to doing things wrong and hurting people. But God ends up seeming to take care of us and move us to a new place and a new direction. But not everyone always feels that way and sees this. This is something that it is tough. And I understand. And that's why we sit here and do this. We talked about Ernest Shackleton being in the Antarctic and the ship crashing and not able to get anywhere. And they survived and nobody died, and they got all the people back. We talked about Corrie ten Boom, and we talked about Steve Saint, and how an act of forgiveness brought a whole nation to Christ, and an opportunity for the Bible to be translated into a new language. Too many times we seem to fall short on the things that we're trying to do and in the direction we're supposed to be. And, people don't seem to understand. So now tonight, we want to talk about resistance. We've gone through these different stages, and some of you might still be stuck in those stages. We'll still cover that for you guys. But what I'm wanting to cover today is in such a way where you can actually get the help that you need to move forward. And this is a combination resistance/temptation moment. If you just look at Deuteronomy chapter 4 verses 5 and 6. That's Deuteronomy chapter 4 verses 5 and 6. But you are faithful to Yahweh your God and are alive this day. Behold, I have taught you statutes and ordinances, even as Yahweh my God commanded me, that you may do so in the midst of the land where you go into to possess it. And the reason why I'm mentioning this verse to you is today, whatever land that you're in, whatever place that you're at, God has a direction for you on what He wants to do for you and move you to this next point. I have a lot of notes, as you guys can tell. I got like 4 pages of notes that I've tried to sum down into like 1 page, so I can pull this off in an hour. But I will have follow-up stuff on this later on too. Let's also look at Proverbs 15:14. Proverbs 15:14. Yes, my voice is scratching. If Miranda go get me some water, that'll be very helpful. Give me your glass. I don't know where my glass is. Oh, here we go. Thank you. But as soon as this gets done, Proverbs chapter 15 verse 14 says, "The heart of one who has understanding seeks knowledge. Now, I bring this to your attention. This series was created so that you may learn a tool to help you get closer to God and be able to learn to do this final step, which is the resistance against the devil. Now, these tools that I'll give you today, it's not just an automatic fail-safe point that will just completely make you resist every single time that the devil comes at you. Because the devil is very sneaky, he's very smart, he knows all the scriptures, so you're going to have to keep enduring and keep moving forward. But these steps that I'm going to give you are technically something that you'll have to keep moving forward, and you'll have to try and change it per your situation, because one thing doesn't work for one person versus working for someone else. So, on that note, I'm going to look at some more verses here. I got to get them up. Well, that's not it. But God wants to take us to this next point. Now, what I talked about the other day, I talked about prayer. And I'm going to cover prayer real quick. Prayer is a two-edged sword. As I talked about in Mission Forgiveness, that when you have enemies against you, you pray against your enemies. This is a two-edged sword. If you've already forgiven your enemy, this puts you in a situation where they technically can't spiritually hurt you again. That doesn't mean their words aren't going to hurt you again. That doesn't mean what they're going to do won't cause any problems to you. But what it will do is it sets you free from the bondage of what these words can do to you. Because words have so much power. They bring life and death, as we talked about. And I want to briefly cover more in depthly with you prayer. For resistance, when you're praying against your enemies and you already forgiven them and you're beyond that step, this is a twofold weapon for you. When you prayed for your leaders, when you pray for, let's say you're in college or in high school, you pray for everyone in that high school, your teachers, the guys, the girls, the people driving the buses, the people who wrote the books, for the people who wrote your pens and paper. You know, someone who, you know, whoever when you sit here and go way beyond the whole spectrum, pray for the guy who built the building you're in, or pray for the guy who built your pencil or the paper and everything. God will open your mind to this point way beyond where you're technically at this stage of your life. And God wants to take you to these new places and remove you from the old way of thinking. Because that's the thing, when you're a Christian, you get further and further into your walk with God. And in this point, it brings you something closer. We look at Jeremiah 13:16. It says, "Give glory to Yahweh your God, before he causes darkness, before your feet stumble on the dark mountains. And while you look for light, he turns it into the shadow of death, and he makes it gross darkness. But if you will not hear it, my soul shall weep in secret for your pride, and my eyes shall weep bitterly, and run down with tears, because Yahweh's flock has been taken captive." When you look at this verse, and you think about, you've been told something, and God is like totally crying about us, because we sit here and see this, because someone's in pride. And that's the whole thing. We don't want to pray against our enemies. We don't want to sit here and try and show love to someone who doesn't deserve it. And mission resistance is all about letting God take you to these new places in your life. We're going to talk a little bit more about some opportunities in your life and some different things, and we will return.